The fifth installment of the Transformers movie is coming very soon, so in honor of that, I have a new segment for you all called Review Roundup, where if there's a new movie out coming in theaters, I review the previous installments before reviewing the new one. And the first franchise that I'm picking is Michael Bay's Transformers movies. So the first Transformers movie isn't awful. It's not bad, it's almost good. I think the first Transformers movie is a fun, guilty pleasure summer action movie, and it's fine for what it is. I think, the action in this movie is actually really good. The visual effects still holds up after 10 years now. And I don't hate this movie. This movie came out when I was 9, and I was the perfect age for it. And I think that this movie, for the most part, still sort of holds up, even with all the bad things about it. It still suffers from an unnecessary amount of racism, unnecessary shots made just to show off beautiful women. But hey, in this movie, it has a narrative. Even for a Transformers movie, that's actually pretty amazing. So, I think that what I liked the most about this movie was, the spectacle of it, mostly. The original Transformers movie had a really nice spectacle. Going in, you know exactly what to expect, and even though it suffers from an unnecessary amount of adult humor that's really immature, I think that if anyone were to ever watch a Transformers movie, that this one would be the way to go. Watch one and you're done. That's it. And I'm just going to give the first Transformers movie a 6 out of 10 for being a guilty pleasure, fun summer blockbuster. The second Transformers movie is an atrocious piece of shit, to say the least. This movie takes all the negative aspects of the first Transformers movie and doubles it. So this time you get more racism, more immature adult humor, and this is the first one in the series to have almost no logic. But there's a reason behind it. This movie was made during the writer's strike of the late 2000s. And it really shows, because this movie is the first of many Transformers movies to have no plots, no logic, no sense of coherentness at all, and it just gives me, when I watched this movie, it gave me a headache after watching it, because after all the shit that this movie just throws at you, you just don't know what to think of it. And this movie just has so many plot holes. Like, in the first movie, when they had to get the Allspark and they put it in Megatron's chest, it kills him. But then, in this movie, the Allspark, when plunged in his chest, revives him. And also, they said that only a Prime could kill a Prime, yet Megatron is not a Prime and kills Optimus. And if I try to go through all the plot holes of this movie, there's just not enough time for me to just go through all of it. This movie is just full of it. And also, the characters Mudflap and that other robot, his brother, I can't remember his name, but they're the Jar Jar Binks of the Transformers franchise. And they are annoying little shits that shouldn't have been put in the movie to begin with, and the fact that this movie spends way too much time with them is one of the reasons why this movie sucks. Also because it has no plot, no character development, or anything that makes a movie, but, that too. And it's because Transformers 2 is an atrocity, but such so that it's hilarious and, I'll say, a little fun to enjoy at how bad it is. I'm going to give Transformers Revenge of the Fallen a 2 out of 10. Transformers Dark of the Moon is not good enough to be considered a guilty pleasure summer blockbuster, but not bad enough to be enjoyable. If anything, this movie is just bland. In my opinion, I think it's the most forgettable of the Transformers movies because, as I said, it's not terrible enough to be remembered for how awful it is, or somewhat decent enough to be considered a guilty pleasure. What I like the most about this movie is it's the last of the Transformers movies to have any sense of logic. It has a little tiny bit of logic, like just so little of it, but for a Transformers movie, that's a sight to see. I really think that this is also the last of the Transformers movies to be enjoyable-ish. Tolerable, I'll say. If you watch this movie like on cable or whatever, you won't hate your life for watching this movie. But I think that Dark of the Moon it offers a lot of good action for all the people who just want to see the spectacle of it. But for the most part, it's just a repeat of the earlier Transformers movies. And from this movie, a lot of people can see the formula of the Transformers movies. There's an ancient artifact that needs to be found and used or destroyed before the bad guys do. And that's it. That's the only plot from now on. But Dark of the Moon is bland, unmemorable, and it's just not worth your time, really. Which is why I'm gonna have to give it a 5 out of 10. Transformers: Age of Extinction is the worst movie of the franchise so far. I haven't seen the new one yet, but I'll update if that's the worst movie in the franchise when I review it. Age of Extinction is the worst Transformers movie in the franchise so far. After Shia LaBeouf decided to leave the franchise, Mark Wahlberg replaced him, and even if you replace the old cast with this movie, Marky Mark is not enough to save this piece of shit. This movie has no logic, no story, and nothing good about it. The visual effects in this movie is atrocious. It feels like a live-action cartoon, and even the Transformers in the earlier installments blended in well enough to their environment where it's believable for the movie. In this movie, they stick out like a sore thumb because the visual effects is awful. Every technical thing about this movie fails. The sound design fails. The visual effect fails. The lack of direction. The acting is terrible. I hate this movie. I really do. When I watched this movie back in 2014, when I began to have a coherent thought of movies, it gave me a headache for 2 hours after watching this movie. And there's no excuse for this movie to be almost 3 hours long. Why is it 3 hours long? The earlier Transformers movies were only roughly 2 hours and 20 minutes, or 2.5 hours at most. This is almost 3 hours long, and it feels like 5. This product is just a 3 hour long feature-length product so that all the people in China would rave over it. And if you can't tell, this is the first of the Transformers movies made solely for the people in China, because from now on, blockbusters aren't just made to appeal Americans, it's made to appeal Chinamen and everyone around the world. And from now on, the studios think if blockbusters flop here, it doesn't matter. If it's a success in China, then it's considered a success. This movie, I hate this movie. Product, sorry. It's not a movie. This is a product, and it's laughably atrocious. Which is why I'm gonna have to give this movie a 2 out of 10. Thanks for watching my review roundup of Michael Bay's Transformers movies. Stay tuned to my review of the new one, and I hope I see you in the next review.